Hey everyone, it's Ophi from the AstroTwins, answering a question I'm asked quite a lot these days, which is, should I read my rising sign horoscope? Now, as you get into astrology more and start to do your chart, you learn about more than just your sun sign or what we call your zodiac sign. You learn about all the different planets and where they were when you were born, and your rising sign, which is what begins your chart, your birth or natal chart. So, a lot of astrologers will recommend that you read your horoscope for both your sun sign and your rising sign. And when I get asked that, I say, yes and no. I'm kind of the school that reading your rising sign does not actually give you that accurate of a horoscope. And in this video, I'm going to explain why, and I'm going to also explain how you can use your rising sign to get an accurate reading of your chart right now without having to confuse yourself by reading two different horoscopes every day or week or month. Now, at AstroStyle, our website, we write for your sun sign. We write based on the assumption that the sun is traveling through every house of the zodiac in equal portions, which I'll show you visually, and that your sun sign is what starts the zodiac wheel. So when you read our horoscopes, we recommend just saving yourself some time and reading your own sign. So how it works is, this is the birth chart. This one is Oprah's, and this is a sort of a screenshot or a freeze frame of where all the planets were at your exact moment of birth. So this wheel shows, the sun is this round circle symbol here. When Oprah was born, the sun was in Aquarius. Her moon, which is here, was in Sagittarius. And if you want to learn how to read this, we have another video on our AstroTwins YouTube channel that you can watch to learn how to read your own birth chart, the three pieces of it. But for the purposes of this one, this is to show you that this thin outer ring here represents the zodiac. And in Western astrology or tropical astrology, the system we use is that this inner circle is sort of represents you on Earth. It's as though you're here, lying down in a nice grassy field looking up at the sky. And the sky has been divided into these 12 equal pieces, these slices that are the zodiac. And the planets journey through the sky, and as they do, they encounter different pieces of the zodiac wheel. So as you can see, Oprah's sun here is an Aquarius because at the time of her birth, it was intersecting this Aquarius piece of the sky. So the sun was taking its trip through the piece of the sky that's ruled by Aquarius. So that's why Oprah is an Aquarius. I know that's a little technical, but there's a reason I'm telling you this, and don't feel like you have to understand it to understand this yet. So just know that this thin outer ring represents the zodiac, and then this middle wheel with the bigger chunks represent the 12 houses. So this arrow is pointing into one of the houses. So as you may know, there are 12 houses in astrology and the zodiac wheel, and this is a very simplified representation. This shows them as though they were all equal pieces. So when we're doing sun sign horoscopes, the kind you'll read in a magazine or on a website or in the newspaper, that's based on the assumption that the zodiac is divided into these 12 equal pieces. So if you're a Sagittarius, the zodiac always begins at 9 o'clock, or, that's what would be 9 o'clock on a clock. And then the houses travel counterclockwise. So it's based on the assumption that your sign that you're reading for begins right here at 0 degrees, and then everything goes around from there. So if you're in Aries, the zodiac wheel would begin at Aries, 0 degrees right here. then Taurus, 0 degrees, then Gemini, then Cancer, then Leo. And so when we calculate for sun sign horoscopes, we assume that each of these chunks of the zodiac is equally equal in size and it's filled up by a different zodiac sign. Now, that's not really how it actually works in the sky, but the problem is that every single person has a different chart in the world. I mean, somebody would have to be born at the exact same minute, location, day, and year as you to have the same chart as you. So even a minute can make for a different chart. Now, as an astrologer, I can't write for 7 billion people. So popular astrology is based on this, what's called the equal house system, sun sign horoscopes. For some reason, they work because we've been doing it for years and they are scarily accurate. So this is a system that does work. Now, if you were reading for your rising sign, things get a little dicey here. So the rising sign in a chart, now we're looking at a birth chart. We're looking at Madonna's chart here. We like our icons. So the rising sign begins the chart. So wherever 9 o'clock is, this thicker line is the rising sign, and then it travels counterclockwise around. Now, what you're going to notice probably is these zodiac signs in the thin outer ring are always the same size. They're all 30-degree pieces of a 360-degree circle. They're equal in size. That never changes. This is a representation of the sky. But the houses in Madonna's chart and in most people's charts are very different in size. That depends on your place of birth. So if Madonna was to read for her rising sign horoscope, here's what would happen. Let me go back to that. Sorry. Here's what would happen. So we would say, what we measure the house by whatever is on whatever part of, this is a lot of technical astrology. So this is probably for advanced listeners in some regards, but you're going to get to a point where you start to astro geek out and you start to read your rising sign and you're going to wonder, does this work or doesn't it? So I'm giving you the legit astro explanation here. So when you read a chart, you start with this line here of the first house, and you sort of pull it out to intersect the thin outer ring, and that would be whatever rules that house. So Madonna, her first house, cusp or borderline, to give you a little Madonna pun, intersects the Aquarius. This is the Aquarius symbol. It intersects the Aquarius piece of the sky. So Madonna, therefore, has an Aquarius rising. The rising sign is simply the zodiac sign that intersects the cusp or borderline of the first house. So now we're going to keep traveling. So in our sun sign horoscopes, remember, we assume that it goes in order. So according to the way you would write for a magazine or a website, you would think, all right, the first house is ruled here by Aquarius. Then the second house should be ruled by Pisces, because that's the next sign. The third house should be ruled by Aries. The fourth house should be ruled by Taurus, which comes next. But no, that is not true for Madonna. Because of where she was born, her first house is pretty large. You can see this house is big and this house is small. So if I was following that system, I'd say, all right, her first house is ruled by Aquarius. Now let me go down to the borderline of the second house and see what it intersects. Oh, shoot. It intersects Aries. That's not the next sign. The whole piece of the Pisces sky is completely, sorry, Google Slides, is completely contained in her first house. So this theory breaks down pretty quickly. So if you're reading a sun sign horoscope in a newspaper or magazine and assume, that's based on that equal house system that I showed you. We're assuming that every house is 30 degrees just and lined up to the zodiac, but it isn't. it isn't in Madonna's chart. So this is what's actually called an intercepted sign, meaning it's completely contained in one house. It's a little fancy astro speak, but it's an interesting one because when you have an intercepted sign, that sign may not exert much influence on you, or it has you have to bring out its qualities more consciously. So fun fact, if you see one of those in your own chart, do a little research on intercepted signs. But for this exercise, we're looking. So her first house is ruled by Aquarius. Her second house is ruled by Aries. Her third house, Taurus, so that's following along. Her fourth house, Gemini, but she's got a little fourth house. So her fifth house is also ruled by Gemini. Then Cancer, then Leo, then Virgo is intercepted again. So then we skip a sign. Eighth house is ruled by Libra. Ninth, Scorpio. 10th, Sagittarius. Another small house again. And you notice these are opposite houses, opposite each other on the wheel. And so they always are like a balanced that way, the size of the houses. So she's got a very small 10th house, which is ruled by Sagittarius. And the 11th house is also ruled by Sagittarius, then Capricorn, and then we've gone around. So as you can see, the theory that is used, or the system that is used for sun sign horoscopes, does not work when you're looking at your rising sign and trying to read it the same way, unless you read it as though all of the houses of your rising sign are also equal, but then it's just way too much information, confusing. So I'm going to show you next. This is the houses versus the sign. I'm going to show you next how to do an accurate reading for yourself, not just monthly, but at any moment by using a transit chart with your rising sign. I want to show you the proper use of a rising sign chart. And it's not this way. That's my opinion. So I say read your online monthly forecast for your sun sign. And then I'm going to show you how to do a transit chart so you can get a reading at any day for your rising sign. So yeah, we just showed you the equal house system. Here is what you'll sometimes see the basic zodiac wheel shown as, but in actuality, it's more like this. So now the variation in size of the houses depends how close or how far from the equator you were born. So if you were born, say, this is the same person's chart as though they were born in San Juan, Puerto Rico, very close to the equator. Now look how very equal, almost equal in size all of the houses are. So let's say you were born close to the equator. If you were, there may be a chance that you could read your rising sign horoscope, but it really depends because this person may have very little bit. No, I'm not even going to go into that. Sorry. It depends on the degree of your rising sign. I'll just say if you know enough astrology to know the degree of your rising sign, if it's an earlier degree, there's a good chance that you could possibly read your rising sign horoscope and get some accuracy. But the same person born on the same day and time, but in Norway, look at the vast difference in size of their charts. Their fourth house is an intercepted Aquarius sign. Their 10th house is Leo intercepted. It's the same thing as with Madonna, so it just doesn't really work. Now, if you do want to read your rising sign chart, you can go to AstroSeek, a lovely website made by a very nice Taurus man named Peter, who we've become friends with. And he has a really great selection of charts here. So you can go over to AstroSeek and do the transits chart. Choose transits. And let me sign myself in here so it has my chart saved. So I'll show mine. Okay. Also very cool because I know people like to save their charts, so this is a great service. So let's go to transit charts. Now, a transit chart means the planets in the sky are always in transit, like cars or whatever. They're always moving around. And at any given time, you can compare them to the planets in your chart. We do a transit chart as astrologers when we're looking at your sun sign, but we do it as though there's this equal house system, and we compare the transiting planets to this assumption that is not an accurate read of your birth chart. But you can do a transit chart comparing the planets in the sky to your chart, your birth chart, which never changes. And then you compare that with the moving or transiting planets and where they are right now. Or say you're planning a wedding or a meeting or a job interview or a big event. You would want to maybe see if the transiting planets are a good match for your chart. So let's say here's my birth chart. I'm going to put in the transits for Valentine's Day. Let's see. Is it going to be a romantic day for me and my husband? Let's say we're thinking about going out to dinner, right? Okay, so 7 o'clock. That's always a good time in New York, New York. Now we're going to calculate the transits. Now, this is a transits plus birth chart. So this outer wheel, it's an extra wheel with the orange planets, will represent where the planets will be on February 14th, 2019. And then this chart in the middle is my birth chart, which never changes. So I can look and I can see, okay, here's Saturn. It's going to be it's going to be transiting through my first house. Let's see, where's Venus, the planet of love, going to be? Okay, so Venus, I'm going to look over here, it's going to be at 12 degrees Capricorn. So it's going to be right in my first house. So then I'll do my own interpretation of that. So while you'll read your sun sign, so Venus is going to be in Capricorn. So for me as a Sagittarius, that would be the second house because it goes Sagittarius, Capricorn, 2. So when I read my own monthly horoscope, I'm going to get advice that for Venus in the second house and what that is like and what's going to be happening, which is about luxury and maybe go on a nice upscale date. But if I want to say, oh, now let me get very specific just to me, not just for all Sagittarians, but just for me. Then I'm going to find Venus here in a transit chart, say, oh, it's in my first house. The first house is about independence and, the self. So maybe I'm going to be the one making the plans or picking the reservation. Maybe I'm going to need a little me time. I'm not going to feel all romantic. I might want to actually have a little time for myself to maybe go get my hair done or get a pedicure or something like that before I go on that luxurious date that my sun sign horoscope tells me to go on. Let's see, Mars. Mars is also one of the love planets. So I know Mars is going to be moving into Taurus. So it'll already be in Taurus that very day, 0 degrees Taurus. Here it is. The transiting planet is in this. And this is the planet in my chart. This column is a transiting planet. So Mars in Taurus for a Sagittarius, when you do the monthly horoscope or the sun sign horoscope, you start with your sign and you count Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus. That's 6. So Taurus rules the 6th house for me as a Sagittarius. Okay, so that's kind of about Mars in the 6th house. Maybe I'm going to want to get a workout on, or maybe, I'm going to want to book something upscale, but also healthy for eating. Okay, great. Well, here, Mars in my transit chart, this is the specific to me, not all Sagittarians, but just me. It's going to be transiting through my 3rd house. And that means socializing with friends, getting out in the neighborhood, doing something, maybe going to a show. The 3rd house is about culture and creativity and that sort of thing. So now I can piece together a lot of information. Okay, so maybe I want to find some place upscale, nice, but in the neighborhood. So maybe a nice, hotel bar, healthy. So, Perhaps they need to have a couple of vegan options, or I'm going to want to have, the scallops instead of the steak that night. And then Venus is in my first house, so I probably should dress up a little bit, but something a little fun with personality, because the first house is about the self. So that's how I'm going to put the whole puzzle together. I'm going to use my transit chart for my rising sign, and I'm going to use my sun sign horoscope for my basic plans as a Sag. So that is my recommendation. I know that was a lot of astro information. I'm going to recommend also watching our Birth Chart 101 video. If you have never really done anything like that or looked at your birth chart before, I might even say, if this all sounds like a foreign language to you, go back and watch that. We'll walk you through step by step how to do your chart. And then once you have a good handle on this, come back and watch this again and follow along. It's a good system, but in summary, the rising sign chart, I am not a big fan. I think you get that by now. The sun sign chart, yes, for some reason it works. So, I highly recommend just saving yourself the trouble of reading double the horoscopes and learning how to do a transit chart when you get advanced enough in your astrological learning. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.